Thank you for being here. Thank you for your support. As you know, this is our 44th Congressional Black Caucus Foundation Annual Legislative Conference. Thank you. And what an honor it is for me to stand here as the co-chair of this conference. Now, I'm a freshman member, for those of you who might not know it. They get on me for saying that, so I improvised a little bit. I took something out of our moderator's book, you know, when you talk about controversy. So I decided to use the power of the imagination. So somebody came up to a whole group of freshmen, and they said, "Oh, you're a freshman." I said, "Oh, but I'm an upper class freshman." And now everybody refers to me as a upper class freshman. And so, you know, when you show out, you have to have people who can show up. And so we are here today for this issues forum: money, wealth, disparities, building a personal financial legacy. We had the opportunity last year to talk about wealth creation and to talk about financial literacy. And you overwhelmingly said to us, remember financial wealth, financial literacy, and how do we get there across the generations? And so I paused for a moment, and then I picked up the phone, and I called one of the most powerful individuals that I know, scholar, someone that is an intellect, someone who, in his own words and imagination, can move mountains and maybe even resurrect Martin Luther King on one of his days when you might hear him on public TV. He has been named by Essence magazine as one of the 40 most inspiring African Americans, and by Ebony magazine as one of the 100 most influential Black Americans. He is one of the nation's most renowned public intellectuals. I like that. I'm coining that. Public intellectual. There are so many things I could say about him, but you know I don't need to do that. Because when you say his name or any one of the panelists here, people show up because they show out. So it is indeed my honor to have someone that you know, someone I'm proud to call a good friend. I didn't even get the request out. And Michael Eric Dyson said, "I'll be there. I'll do this because it's important to the people who we represent and the people who look like us." So you tell the people at Georgetown University that you were teaching and preaching today. Join me in welcoming our moderator, no other than the Dr. Michael Eric Dyson. This is Congresswoman Joyce Beatty, and I approve that message.
You are too much. Let's give it up again for the great Congresswoman.
Yes.
For the great Congresswoman. And the reason I said yes so quickly is because she is a remarkable woman, as you already know. She might not have been here but a little bit, but she done made some big moves already, right? As the young people say, big things popping, right? Hope TD Jakes doesn't sue me for that. But, okay.
I got that line.
Thank you. She's hip. She's very hip. So we are honored to be here today. Congresswoman is doing an extraordinary job, already a co-chair of this August institution, 44, the 44th year for the 44th president of the United States of America. Somebody ought to box that and put a dime on it. Okay, I know y'all don't get that reference. That was the street lottery. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Yeah. Your daddy was a numbers runner too. But I used to ask my mother, why is daddy always dealing with those numbers? Is he a mathematician? But what an opportunity it is then at this very moment with the first Black Attorney General, resigning today, right? Now, he was big for us, right? Because that showed us that you could deal with all they stuff, the dominant culture and the paradigm of being universal while being specific and particular. And so we celebrate Eric Holder and his achievements. We just have to say that today as we acknowledge the wonderful spirit and the welcoming attitude of Congresswoman Joyce Beatty. I mean, that's just Midwest love. I ain't trying to say nobody else ain't got it. I ain't trying to say the East doesn't possess it, as tough as they are. I'm not trying to say the South doesn't have hospitality. When you got a Midwestern person with that kind of intelligence and that kind of insight and that kind of fire and that kind of education coming together with that kind of spirit, she got the learning and the burning. So we are grateful to have this opportunity to be here today. Now I want to get right to our panel because y'all are here to hear from them. Congresswoman Beatty has already referenced last year's panel, which was extraordinary. But what we want to do is to try to figure out what's going on in this contemporary era when we have so much extraordinary difficulty in terms of creating wealth, because we ain't talking about being rich, we're talking about creating wealth, where you ain't got to necessarily work every day, right? Warren Buffett ain't got to work every day, working hard. It's easy to work hard at something where you ain't got to work. When you go, right, have y'all had a job you didn't want to have? 2 hours was too much. God, I just got here. What time is coffee break? I don't know if, I hope today hurry up and end. I've been here for 1 minute now. I got 7 hours and 59 minutes left. But when you're doing something you want to do, ain't enough hours in the day to do what you got to do. So these people will help facilitate, these wonderful speakers and panelists will help us understand the relationship between money, wealth, and disparities. Because there are some critical disparities out here. The economic inequality, the social injustice that reinforces the economic inequality, the lack of access to capital, the lack of a just distribution of resources to people who are working in jobs. And look, we've just been getting the recent numbers, thanks to Reverend Jesse Jackson and other people, about what's going on in the Silicon Valley. And see, we ain't faced the book. Facebook. Y'all gotta hang with me now. I mean, if you don't laugh at my jokes, it's gonna be a rough day in store for you. But we don't, right, Twitter, Facebook, Silicon Valley, black people have mastered and manipulated technology from the beginning. Before doctors had beepers, black folk on the corner had them. I'm not saying what they were doing with them, I'm just saying they possessed them. So what we wanna talk about here is the just distribution of wealth, economic access so that we can bring parity to the social conditions that we live under, and also figure out ways where we can do our own thing, build our own wealth, so that we will be able to pass on a legacy, not of deficit, but of asset to our children. So let me just very briefly introduce this great panel so that you'll understand who's on deck here. To my immediate left, Dr. Gloria Mayfield Banks, who is an internationally renowned motivational success strategist and sales trainer who's consistently beaten the odds to achieve extraordinary success. She's from HU over here. I thought, okay, this is barely you know. I mean, what are you people ashamed of where you went to school? We kind of know. We sort of know. All right, anybody from Howard up in here? HU. HU. All right. I'm just saying. MBA from Harvard University, right? She went to 2 Howard and Harvard. She got both the H-bombs down. And an honorary doctorate from University of Maryland, Eastern Shore. She's got a multi-million-dollar enterprise, but she's asked me, please don't ask for any loans today. As an author, a founding partner of Charisma Factor, and an elite executive national sales director with Mary Kay. And she's ranked number 3 in the nation. So you see what we've got going on here. She's been with Oprah Winfrey on the platform Empowering Women and Girls for Leadership, and she's been on ABC TV, CNBC, all over the universe. She resides in Baltimore, Maryland, with her husband, Ken Banks. They share 4 adult children. I know what you mean, sharing 4 adult children, right? My kid's out of my house, but not out of my pocket. I'm sharing adult children as well. Next we have here Michelle Green, and formerly Meyer Ship. Is that, should I say that?
Yeah, it's all good.
Okay, I'm just saying. I figured when somebody say that.
all good.
See, I used to be Mike, but Michael Dyson, so I understand. I just got to say what's up there. Vice President and Chief Diversity Officer, Corporate Human Resources for Prudential. She's responsible for leading and supporting all diversity and inclusion initiatives for the company and for ensuring ongoing compliance with federal and state equal employment opportunity affirmative action laws and requirements. Very, very important indeed. She joined Prudential in April 2010 as Vice President and Counsel in the Employment and Labor Law Group, and there she provided legal advice, counsel training, and investigative support to several lines of business on a variety of employment and human services related matters. Before she was at Prudential, she was General Counsel of the Waterfront Commission of New York Harbor. She spent 4 years at Merrill Lynch. In her last role, she led the diversity and inclusion efforts of the global wealth management business. So you can see our folk up here know a lot about the creation and production and distribution of wealth. She also served as an adjunct professor at Seton Hall University School of Law, and she graduated from Seton Hall University School of Law in 1995 and clerked for the Honorable James H. Coleman on the New Jersey Supreme Court, member of very numerous distinguished service organizations, and recently she was honored as one of the most powerful and influential women of the tri-state area by the Tri-State Diversity Council. All right, who we got over there? All right, so all right, you can give them all applause. And then we have Ms. Carla Harris, who was here last year. Were you? You were not here last year. I thought I saw you in the audience. You weren't sitting there?
No, you saw me 2 weekends ago in California.
Oh.
There you go.
Oh, wow. That's.
There you go.
Wait a minute. How's our baby doing? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
Now that, my brother, you would have remembered.
I hate to tell you, but so many women have said the same. Miss Carla from Cali.
No, seriously, I heard you speak at the Black Corporate Directors Conference, and you did an amazing job.
Thank you so
that's
much,
all.
Ms.
Yeah.
Harris. I appreciate that. Thank you so kindly. Thank you for rescuing me. All right. I knew I'd seen you. All right. Carla Harris is the Vice Chairman of the Global Wealth Management, Managing Director, and Senior Client Advisor at Morgan Stanley. She's responsible for increasing client connectivity and preparation to enhance revenue generation across the firm. She's got an extensive industry experience in technology and media and retail, telecommunications, transportation, industrial, and healthcare sectors. She was appointed by President Barack Obama in 2013 to chair the National Women's Business Council. She's been extremely active in public and civic affairs. For more than a decade, of course, she was also a senior member of the Equity Syndicate Desk and executed such transactions as initial public offerings for UPS, Martha Stewart Living, Omni Media, Ariba, Redback, the General Motors sub-IPO of Delphi Automotive, and the $3.2 billion, that's what it'd be, common stock transaction for Immunex Corporation, one of the largest biotechnology common stock transactions in U.S. history. She also went to Harvard, got an MBA from there, second-year honors, and an AB in economics from Harvard University, magna cum laude. She also received honorary doctorate of laws, humanities, and business degrees from Marymount Manhattan College, Bloomfield College, Jacksonville University, Simmons College, the College of New Rochelle, and Fisk University. She's part of many organizations. She's co-chair of the National Social Action Commission of Delta Sigma Theta Corporation, Sorority Incorporated, and she received the Bert King Award from the Harvard Business School, African American Alumni Association in 2005. Let's welcome.
Yeah.
My baby mama. So now, you got to tell on yourself first, then it won't be a surprise. We have Michael Crystal, started to say Cristal, but black folk ain't drinking it after Jay-Z boycotted Cristal, so it's Michael Crystal, first vice president of Phi Beta Sigma and Director of Operations for the Kroger Company. As a teenager, his journey began as a bagger at a local grocery store in his hometown of Grenada, Mississippi, where he worked to finance his Bachelor of Science degree in marketing from Mississippi State University. He's currently the Director of Operations, as I said, for Kroger within Atlanta, Georgia, for which he's responsible for the sales and profit of 80 stores while leading a team of over 11,000 employees. He's improved the sales within the region by championing an improved shopping experience, high-level merchandising standards, people development, and accountability of his team to deliver the desired financial results. So he knows how to get the money. Because of his significant leadership attributes, he's recommended by his company to attend FMI's inaugural Future Connects Leadership Conference in 2009. He served on the board of directors for the Arkansas Grocers and Retail Merchants Association, a member of the American Marketing Association, and chairman of the board of directors of the Memphis affiliate of the National Urban League. As I indicated, he's an international vice president of Phi Beta Sigma. He and his wife, Marcia, is it Marcia or Marcia?
Marcia.
Marcia, have 3 children, Lauren, Brandon, and Jalen. Let's welcome him as well. All right. And next we have Ms. Karen L. Heath Wade, who's Vice President, Sales, Head of Distribution for the Investment Management Group nationwide. Prior to joining Nationwide Financial in 2007, Karen worked with Citigroup Private Bank as part of a wealth management team responsible for advising wealthy individuals, families, endowments, and foundations. Prior to Citigroup, she worked with Prudential Financial in a similar role. She got a BA from Mount Holyoke College and an MBA from Loyola University of Chicago. She holds the designations of Accredited Investment Fiduciary through the Catt School of Business, Certified Investment Management Analyst, and Investment Strategist Certificate through the Investment Management Consultants Association. She's a member of the Wharton School of Business and holds the FINRA Series 7, 24, 63, and 65 licenses. I don't know what them numbers mean, but I know that's pretty darn important, all right? She also serves on the product committee of the Money Management Institute. She's a member of the Links Incorporated, Columbus chapter, where she serves as chair of the National Trends and Services Committee. She's also an active member of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. Let's welcome her here today as well. Brother Ray Odom, Senior Vice President, Director of Wealth Transfer Services, Northern Trust, Chicago. He serves as a national subject matter specialist in wealth planning. He works with regional wealth advisory teams and wealth strategists to provide valuable planning ideas to clients, prospects, and their advisors, and is a frequent speaker on wealth planning and asset protection topics. Prior to what he's doing now, Ray was responsible for the administration of large, complex trusts for individuals and families. He began his career with Northern Trust in June of 1980. He served as a tax counsel with special expertise in tax-exempt organizations, fiduciary income and tax, and estate gift tax before leaving for private law practice in 1990. He's got a BA from Valparaiso University and a JD from the Ohio State Moritz College of Law, currently an attorney licensed to practice law in Illinois and before the U.S. Tax Court. In addition, he's a certified financial planner and formerly taught as an adjunct professor in the MBA program at Benedictine University, and currently a member of the Chicago Estate Planning Council and the American Bar Association. And then finally, we have, last but not least, Ms. Pamela D. Everhart, Senior Vice President of Government Relations for Fidelity Investments. She's responsible for advancing Fidelity's government relations and public affairs efforts in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the city of Boston. In addition, she supports Fidelity's governmental relations and public priorities in Washington, D.C. As a 20-year veteran of Fidelity, she's led Fidelity's personal and workplace investing, PWI, business units, external retirement, legislative advocacy, and benefit policy development efforts. She received a bachelor's degree in business administration from the University of Texas at Austin and a Juris Doctor from Harvard Law School, where she was an assistant managing editor of the Harvard Women's Law Journal and was a class marshal. She also serves as a member of the Senior Advisory Council of the Harvard Law School Association and previously served as a member of the HILSA Executive Committee. She's a member of the American Bar Association, many other civic and social organizations, including the Boston Symphony Orchestra, the Neighborhood House Charter School, and the Roxbury Latin School. She's married and has 2 children. So, let's welcome all of them here. Now we're going to have some opening comments about 2 minutes, all right? Because we have so many rich, insightful, critically intelligent sisters and brothers on this panel, that we want to provide you the opportunity to give brief opening comments about the theme, about your particular take on the creation of individual wealth building and management, the accumulation of capital strategies that may be especially helpful and productive. And then we want to get into, after you make your initial statements, we'll get into a kind of discussion among ourselves about the strategies that can be deployed to expand wealth and to deepen our grasp of what it takes to actually get hold of some of that cash and some of that capital. And then we'll open it up for our audience to be able to engage. So I'm going to start to my immediate left here with you, Dr. Gloria, so that you can present yourself. All right?
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Should I come up there?
Oh, you can go either way.
Okay. Well, I'm very excited to be here. First, let me say to Congresswoman Betty, thank you so much for this opportunity. And I want to say this is a moment for me. Thank you for the introduction. I hang around people all the time that say, act the custom, act the custom, act the custom, as this happens every day, but it does not. And looking out in this room of beautiful people, I can tell you honestly, this is a moment for me. Living, caring, giving, sharing. Boy, oh boy, I love to work with the daring. A magic million, can you imagine such? Of course you can. I've got the touch. I'm small in stature only, but I'm heavy in belief. I'm leading by example, so you can count on me as I flash this $1 million smile. The world will know it's all worthwhile, because I'm banking on the magic, and I'm banking on success, and I'm banking on some people who simply want the best. So I'm proud to be before you, and I'm proud to be top rank. I'm an elite executive, national sales director. My name is Gloria Mayfield Banks. Thank you. And I just want to tell you, that's how I talk to myself every day when I get up in the morning. That's how I start. I don't know what you say to yourself. That's what I say to myself. I'm excited to talk about wealth. I'm excited to talk about building it. I'm excited to talk about taking people from one spot to another. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about my journey in getting there. It is absolutely true. I'm number 3 out of 3 million women worldwide in Mary Kay. I'm right now ranked number 3 in the nation, number 2 year to date. When people ask me what my goal is, I ask them, aren't they aware of what I just said? If you are currently ranked number 3, if you're on track for number 2, the goal is clearly number 1. She needs to watch out. I'm going to tell you just a little bit about my personal story, because I'm born and raised in Detroit, Michigan. I'm the third of 4 girls. All righty then. Yes, right. Oh, my God. When I was in the 7th grade, they found out I was dyslexic. So I have a reading disorder. Then I went on and studied really hard and had a hard time, but got through high school, went on to Howard University, studied down there at Howard for 4 years, and then went on to move to Boston to work for Polaroid Corporation, then went to Harvard Business School. The story that I want to share with you is while I was at Harvard Business School, because my disorder was so grave and so big that someone had to read to me every single day for 2 years in order for me to understand what was going on. And if you know someone who's dyslexic, the word on the street is that they're very bright. They just have a reading disorder. Both my parents were educators. My mother, like many of us in this room, obviously come from a legacy of strong parents who saw something big for us, and she would stay up night after 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 night saying, Gloria, I know you can read. I want to tell you all, reading is overrated. It is not all it's cracked up to be. But anyway, I went on to Harvard Business School, left there and went to IBM. So then I started with Mary Kay, and I started there not because I wanted a career in entrepreneurship. I started there because I wanted to make some extra money. And what I want to deliver to you is this message of creating wealth is a unique path that a lot of people might take, and the fortitude to go outside the box to create wealth, when a lot of people would say to me on a consistent basis, why with that background might you do something like Mary Kay and take that road? And I'm going to tell you something, when you're creating wealth and you're going to hear many pieces of advice in terms of creating wealth. I want you to know that it takes the road less traveled to create wealth, and that's why we talk about it so much, is because not everyone is talking about it. And so I want to give you a couple of pieces of advice that I've had on my way to do that. I also want to tell you that I stand before you as a woman who was in domestic violence for 10 years. And I tell that story very proudly and broadly because when you look at me, you see a very smart, intelligent, professional working woman who was in domestic violence for 10 years. And when the story came out recently and they said, why did she stay? My hashtag said, because my optimistic attitude convinced me that I could change things for 10 years. So then I was a single parent for 7 years. And then I went down to Florida to the theme park called Wet n Wild, where I met Ken, and it was wet. Can't unpack that right now.
Was it wild?
It was wild. Yes, it was all of that. All of that. And then we had a blended family. So I just want to tell you the journey. Everyone has a story. Everyone has a story, and everyone has a platform from which to tell the story. But here's my 10 tips. Here's my 10 quick tips in developing wealth. Number one, I would say to make a decision, because a lot of people don't even know that they are without the decision to create wealth. And I would tell you, when you make a decision to create wealth, make the decision. The decision I made was I would never take advice from anyone that I wasn't willing to exchange places with. So if I'm listening to anybody, they got to tell me what's going on with them first. Number two, I would tell you, is about confidence. And I'm excited to tell you that this book that I'm getting ready to come out with in November is called Quantum Leaps, and this is a part of making quantum leaps. And so number two, I would tell you, is the confidence. And I had to have confidence in people skills. If I was going to be around people, if you're going to be around people and you're going to create wealth, all you need to know truly is that it takes other people within you and become strong at that. People are attracted to confident people. Time management, money management, emotional management, skill management. Time management, money management, emotional management, and skill management. When you're creating wealth, I want to tell you that these are the 4 things that will stop you in your level of success, and these are the 4 things that will propel you forward in your level of success. I will tell you number 5 is goal setting. Setting goals, and I will tell you, I could spend forever talking about goals, but when it comes to developing wealth, goals will help you make the correct decisions when you're not comfortable. And in order to have a quantum leap in anything, you've got to be willing to do what's uncomfortable, because the majority of the people that we hang around are not interested in creating wealth. The majority of the people that we're hanging around are people who are interested in working harder, not working smarter. Number 6, I would say image. Image is a big thing, and it's not just how you look, but it's how you project yourself. When you project yourself with that type of image of creating wealth, wealth will come back to you. Number 7 would be passion. It's the driving force. It's what you need in order to make a quantum leap. When you have passion, it is what will keep you up at night. It's what's going to wake you up in the morning. And you've got to know that you're either in passion or out of passion. You have to know what drives your passion. In order to create something that's not been created in your family before, you can only do it with passion, because passion is what drives you past the point of discouragement. And when you're creating wealth and you have a plan for money and it doesn't come immediately, because I always tell people frustration is misplaced expectations, and so that if you're very frustrated with the way things are going, if you don't have passion, the discouragement will kill the creativity. Number 8 would be discipline and hustle. And I don't need to educate you about that, but I will tell you that if you're going to create anything, it's going to take hustle. And I always tell people I'm always moved by people who are brilliant enough, educated enough, strong enough to not give up on their hustle. It's other people that get too tired. Run from tired people. Run from tired people. If they say they're tired, run. Because if you don't run, you're going to be tired. Number 9, people skills. And thus, I'm talking about the leadership skills. Because I get paid to positively deposit into other people. And that being a role model is what drives me the most, being a positive role model. So I would tell you that you're going to lead other people with a fever of leadership skills. And those who lead others into a positive direction will create wealth for themselves. And number 10 would be the short-term sacrifices. The short-term sacrifices that we have to make. I am so glad that I worked very, very hard. I do not apologize for the fact that I've worked hard. I tell people that I've worked hard so that I could play very, very hard. And so therefore, I live out there with joy and I live out there with no regrets. If you were to say, Gloria Mayfield Banks, what has driven you to be at the top of your game and to have financial wealth for yourself, for your family? Because I was divorced, because I was in domestic violence, because I came from a very educated household, because I was broke once. If you've ever known someone who's gone through a divorce situation, her self-esteem is rocked, her self-confidence is rocked, and her financial situation was rocked. And because I was rocked once, I will never be rocked again. As I've built this team of over 6,000 Mary Kay women worldwide, I tell them, I love you, I love working with you, but I will never depend on you because no one will ever steal my hustle nor my wealth. Thank you.
Tough act to follow. Thanks a lot for sitting me next to Gloria. Jeez. No pressure, people. No pressure. Jeez. So you know what? I'm just going to say this. I'm going to say and you cracked on me when you said Meyer ship before, but having been divorced and having been there, I get you completely, and I applaud you for all that you've done.
Thank you.
So keep it up, my sister. You're doing great stuff. Listen, so what I want to do is pick up on a theme that you've heard several times over the course of the last half an hour or so, and that is education. We've heard the word education many times just within the last half an hour. And when my husband, Marcus, and I wake up every day and look at our 5 teenagers, his 2 girls, my 3 boys, and our blended household of teenagers and hormones, the first thing we say to them in the morning is education. And the reason I'm honing in on this for this topic is when it comes to creating financial wealth, guess where we all need to start? With some education. Because I don't know about you, but growing up, nobody ever talked to me about saving for my financial future. They talked to me about getting by paycheck to paycheck, paying the bills, not accumulating too much debt. I'm still trying to figure out how to maintain and create wealth for my family, and our children, and creating a legacy. So what we had brought for you, and these are outside, I want you to make sure you pick one of these up. This is Prudential's financial experience study focused on the African American community. And when you want to start thinking about educating yourself, I implore you to read this study and think about how this applies to your personal situation and what your next steps will be as you plan your financial futures. I want to give you a couple of sound bites from the study for those of you who may not want to take the time to read it. A couple of quick things. We need to know where we are to figure out where we're going to go. Would you all agree?
Yes.
So let me tell you what this study says about where we are, okay, as African American people. 1, it tells us that we have a very, very full plate of financial priorities that include being in a sandwich generation. We're often caring for not only our children, but our parents, our aunts, our uncles, extended families. So we've got debt not only with respect to raising our children, but with respect to caring for our close extended family members. That's 1. 2, we're paying off debt. We're paying off because we don't come from a history of established wealth. All right, so to go to college, we've had to take out loans. To go to law school, we've had to take out loans. So yeah, you heard our bios, the people up here are making some money, but guess what? We're putting out just as much, paying out that debt every month, okay? So the student loans, the credit card debt, we are carrying far more debt than any other group of people. And we need to care for that, all right? This study speaks to that in some great detail. And finally, the last thing that the study showed, which I find very insightful, is that we focus more on short-term savings than long-term investment, all right? Because again, we're trying to take care of our families, the here and now. How do we pay the bills? How do we get ready to send these 5 kids to college? Honey, how are we gonna do it? Honey, help me. He's out there. How are we going to do it? We're trying to figure it out. So we have this conversation. We had it as recently as this morning. He woke up and said to me this morning, raise your hand, honey. He woke up and said to me this morning, he said, you know what he said? He said,
What did he say?
I hope. He said, I hope one of these goddamn kids gets a scholarship. And I looked at him and said, "You damn Skippy." So seriously, we're struggling with this, right? We're trying to plan for now. We can't get loans. It's ridiculous. So how do you do that and make a long-term plan to invest? Something to think about in your individual situation. The other thing that I'm going to leave you with is the fact that in that area of investments, we are a group of people to whom financial advisors typically do not approach. Right? So just like Gloria said about getting out there and hustling and going to get what you want, go find that insight. Go find help from a financial professional who can help you plan your future. I'm going to be real honest with you and tell you that it wasn't until I joined Prudential, and it wasn't until I went to a couple of wealth management sessions with our financial advisors that I came home one day and said to my husband, I said, "You know what, honey? We're not doing this right. We need to talk to somebody." And enlisted one of those financial advisors to help us think about, okay, we know you're focused here and now, but let us help you think about how to focus for then and later. So to that end, pick up the study, enjoy it, and educate yourselves, empower yourselves so you can hustle to plan for your long-term futures.
Awesome. Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And I just want to thank Congresswoman Beatty for giving me the opportunity to be here today and for the invitation. And it is a privilege and an honor to stand in front of you today to talk about something as important to us as individuals and collectively as a people. And that is about money and wealth, and most importantly, as Eric said, around the disparity, because there is a huge disparity in this country. And I think that building wealth is all about three things. How do you get your money? How do you grow your money? And how do you protect your money? And let me start with the how do you get your money? Because so often, many of us do not negotiate appropriately when we are going into that which we call a career, and we generally undersell ourselves. Right. So how can you grow the money if you don't get enough of it going in the door? And so often, we don't do the homework around what we think we should be getting paid. And we walk into an interview or we walk into an offer situation thinking, I just got to get this job, or I'll be so happy to get this job. I'll take this job. Instead of realizing that if you've gotten to the point where they are giving you the offer, you are indeed all of that and a bag of chips, and you do have leverage to negotiate. And particularly in this last 6 years, we've been in the economic environment that we've been in, and people obviously got displaced, laid off. I heard so many people say, well, I just got to get this job. I just got to get this job. And if you were making X and somebody gave you an offer for X minus Y, you took it because you got to get this job. You should never undersell yourself, because it's not about that job. It's about the next 2 or 3, and you will never catch up. And if you're not making enough money, how can you create the wealth? And on average, most folks of color are making under or at the lower end of the band of what they should be making in any job that's out there. And believe me, I had the mentality when I started as well, didn't understand that we had leverage in order to be able to negotiate. And there was one of my colleagues who said to me one day, well, you know, I tell them every year what I think I need to get paid. And I said, what? He said, yeah, I'll go in every year and say, I think I want to get paid X because I've done a good job. I should be at the high end of the range. This is what I'm expecting this year. And I thought, oh my gosh, I can't do that. I can't do that. And I kept thinking about that thing and thinking about that thing. And I said, well, wait a minute, because at that point I was a junior officer. And I said, well, wait a minute. If a junior officer this year happens to be getting, and I'm just using these numbers hypothetically, if at the top end of the range, he or she is getting $300,000, and at the bottom end of the range, he or she's getting $150,000, and I don't say anything, I'm gonna get $150,000. Right. And if I go ask for it, I might get $300,000. Carla Harris, is your fear worth $150,000? Right. And the answer to that is exactly what y'all thinking. No. Right? And I, from that day on, decided that I was going to go in and make it clear that I want to get paid. And you know, I practice in the mirror. I'm not short on words. I want to get paid. I want to get paid. I want to get paid. And so finally, when I felt like I was okay, I went in and said, you know, I've had an extraordinary year. I've created great value for the firm.
Yeah.
And I think that the people at the top end of the range are going to get paid X, and that's what I'm expecting. I know you can't tell me anything about that now, but I wanted you to know that it was important to me that I'm at the top end of the range. That's all I need to say. See you.
Yeah.
And I was out of there. But I will tell you, I have made it clear every year. And ladies and gentlemen, you cannot be afraid to ask for that which you are worth.
That's right.
If you have been there for the last 10 or 15 years, then you are very good and you are valued. So don't be worried or scared about losing it, right? Remember, fear has no place in your success equation. Fear has no place in your success equation. And anytime you approach anything in your life, personally or professionally, from a position of fear, you will always underpenetrate that opportunity. The second piece about how do you grow, you must, as Michelle said, get help if you don't understand the ins and outs about investing. And let's just call this as it is. We, as folks of color, we have trust issues. We have trust issues. I'm not going to tell them how much money I got. No, I'll tell them a little bit over there, but I'm going to tell them about that over there, right? And we generally don't trust each other, which is why you find so many African-American financial advisors having a hard time out there, because we're the only group that doesn't have a natural constituency. The white folks will go to the white folks. The Hispanic people, they want a Hispanic advisor.
That's right.
The Asians, they want an Asian advisor.
That's
but the
right.
black folks like,
That's right. That's right. That's
Right?
That's right. That's real talk.
And it's real. It's real. And it's something, and you know what, frankly, go to anybody that you trust. Okay, let me be clear about that. Making a decision to go to a financial advisor is a personal decision. It is about your money. It is about what you have earned, but you must educate yourself. Anybody below the age of 60 should have some exposure in this market. Have you been seeing what's been going on to this capital markets that we've been in, particularly on the stock side? If you're not in, you're missing it. And if you're really young, if you're 30 or below, you really ought to be in there because you have another 30, 35, 40-year runway. So you should be in the stock market. And if you're not thinking about stocks and you're afraid because you don't want to invest in a particular stock, then invest in a mutual fund. Invest in an ETF. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, we'll get to that in Q&A. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, think about an advisor. You need to get help. We are all multitasking, and most of us can't educate ourselves about being good on the job, taking care of the kids, making sure we're involved philanthropically, and doing all these great things and be up on every financial instrument that's out there. Let me let you into a secret. It is not hard. It is addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. That's it. That's it. It's no calculus around investing. You do have to pay attention, and if you don't have time to pay attention, get somebody to do that for you. That's about growing your money. The other bullet point around growing your money is please understand the difference between your needs and your wants. We self-medicate with retail therapy. I'm not going to ask how many Louis bags in here. I'm not going to ask how many Christian Louboutins, and I am not hating on that. If you have earned the right to do that, do that. But think about it before you make that purchase. That's a $1,000 pair of shoes. How much might you return on that by the end of the year had you invested that money? You know, and all you're going to get in return of those shoes is the bottom don't look red anymore, right?
Right.
So you got to think about how you are spending your money. And as already been said, have a goal. Have a goal. You want to have the decision and the right to not work at 50. You might choose to work through 60. Through 75. But you want to have the mentality is that I want to have the right to disengage at 50. And if you're not comfortable with stocks, you want to think about perhaps doing something with bonds. It's not that you don't have anything at risk, but there's a different profile around investing in fixed income than it is in stocks. But you must be engaged. In this environment where you're getting less than 1% in a bank account, how can you leave the majority of your assets there? The third bullet point I'm going to tell you on growing your money is check your credit. Pay attention to your credit. It is important. Those of you who are young and in college and they give you a credit card and you say, oh, now I have some credit. And then you blow it by the time you're 20 years old. Well, guess what? None of us had to worry about anybody doing a credit check before they gave us a job. Now it is a way to eliminate people. So you're applying for a job as a senior, you've worked hard, you got a 4.0, now you got bad credit. Somebody says, because it's a proxy for your judgment.
That's right.
And if you got bad judgment, I don't want you on my team.
Right.
right? So you got to think about it and protect your credit with everything because it gives you choices and choices have value. So if you are underwater now and you have a lot of debt, methodically pay that debt off so that you have financial flexibility. None of us is promised tomorrow. Anything could happen, and you want to have the ability to take care of yourself. Because let me tell you, somebody up here is going to talk about health care, and if you have no money, you get no care. Let me say it again.
Right.
You have no money, you get no care. Now, what the president has done with ACE is a beautiful thing. I'm very happy about that. But if any of you have ever been a consumer of health care, and you don't have what is deemed to be good insurance, then you get this drug and not this drug. You get this kind of care and not this kind of care. And as we all know, money talks and beat might walk, right? So you want to make sure that you have capital in the event that you get sick. So there are no bad choices made about your care and about your recovery. So it is important that you make sure that you are saving money and that you are investing money so that you can grow your money. And lastly, I'm going to say it's about protecting your money. Many of us work for 30 years. We may invest, we may have savings, but we are all one illness away from financial catastrophe. And don't let something happen to somebody in your family. Let me go back to that other bullet point. By the way, you are not an ATM. We should talk about the power of no. Okay, and in our families, it's a big deal because we are brought up culturally to help people. But I would implore you that when you're the one in your family that's finally getting a step up, that's finally making some money, be very careful about how you loan that money out. My personal view is I will not lend what I am not willing to lose. Because once it leaves my hand, there is no guarantee that it comes back. Right? So if you don't want to lose $1,000, don't loan $1,000. And don't be a Band-Aid. If you can solve a problem, I hear you all day long about helping, if you can solve a problem. But if you are a Band-Aid, be careful because they're coming again. So be careful about those kinds of decisions. When you are trying to protect your money, have a will. Make sure people know what to do in the event that you get sick. We can talk about trust and estates. But don't just leave it out like that, like our grandmamas used to be. Oh, I'm not going to tell them what I have and tell them everything because you know what? When something happens and they have to go in a skilled nursing facility, they want it all first, right? And you don't leave the legacy. So we're going to talk about legacy. And if you want to have a legacy, you have to plan for that legacy and set up trust and set up ways to distribute that wealth while you are alive and well. You know, witness what Bill Gates and Warren Buffett and those guys are doing. There's no accident there. Pay attention. I love this topic, as you can see, but I'm going to sit down now. Thank you.
Good afternoon. What's really exciting about me having an opportunity to visit with this group is I'm really the guy sitting in that chair out there. I'm the guy sitting in the chair out there, and here's why I say that. I don't necessarily come with a tremendous amount of financial training, but I come with the thought of what I saw from my mother. I remember I was probably 2 or 3 years old. And I always used to see my mother in Mississippi, Dr. Tyson, counting her money, counting her money, counting her money, counting her money. And I remember when I was blessed to run for the office of International Director of Bigger and Better Business, the one thing I wanted to bring to that office was an opportunity to enhance it. In 1924, our fraternity founded Bigger and Better Business, and the focus of that program was to provide an enhancement and improvement to African American businesses. But I thought, that's good, and I think that's still relevant. But I also thought there's something magical about being a member of a fraternity. I thought there was an expectation for me to have relationships with people who came before me. And for that, I should be able to get some type of understanding and benefits from that. I felt that way. So I thought we were going to enhance our program. And we thought we would enhance it by still focusing on Bigger and Better Business from a Negro business perspective, but we were going to also invest in our members. How dare this fraternity to bring members into it, but yet not share with them the real issues that would make their lives better. I'm thinking about my mother. And I'm thinking we have this awesome responsibility to showcase to our young students that when they come out of school, wealth creation is just as important as that degree you have. I'm thinking about my mother. And then I'm thinking, here's that great opportunity for our fraternity to do something different. Yes, for the communities, that's our ultimate responsibility, but also for our membership. So I tell my story. When I was blessed to start with Kroger, the first thing I did was I thought about saving. I didn't think about an expensive suit. I didn't think about an expensive car. I thought about saving. And I thought about investing, not truly understanding what that word meant, but was blessed to have a fraternity brother who did, who tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, Michael, you're ready to start a family. You need to start saving for your children's future college loans now. My daughter just graduated from the University of Arkansas, debt-free.
Awesome.
And then I thought about what's my next steps? What are my next steps? Every time I got a raise, I paid Michael first. I paid it through investing. And I thought long and hard about if I'm going to take this journey of growing Kroger's $3 billion worth of sales that I have responsibility for.
That's right.
I'm also going to grow Michael's sales. I'm going to grow Michael's profits. So every day, if some of my fraternity brothers see me kind of, excuse me, can't get it out, looking at my phone, I'm not looking at a text. I'm looking to see how the stock market did yesterday.
Right.
You know what? I'm okay with that because I made a hell of a lot of money yesterday. If you saw it yesterday, I made a hell of a lot of money yesterday. And my point is, as we go through this journey this afternoon, think about what we're saying because she's right. It's not difficult. It's not difficult. It's just us having the courage to step out there. It's us having the courage to step out there. And what's magical about growth of money is what Warren Buffett says. And that is when I'm asleep, I'm making money.
Yes, sir.
When I'm asleep, I'm making money. But it doesn't have to be Warren Buffett. It can be the little kid from Grenada, Mississippi. And that's you. You just got to have the courage to learn it and to apply it. I take my seat with two last thoughts. Phi Beta Sigma allowed me to grow as an individual. Kroger has given me tremendous responsibilities to grow sales and profits for them, and I love it and I'm very passionate about it. But when the dust settles, I have a responsibility to a lady by the name of Marcia Crystal, Lauren Crystal, Brandon Crystal, and Jalen Crystal. And the best example I showed my son Brandon was this. The last two vehicles I purchased, I paid cash for them. I took my son with me on his 19th birthday to get his car. I didn't just go buy it for him. I went in there and I said to Brandon, I said, is that the one you want? He said, yes, Daddy, that's the one I want. I said, okay, we're going in here to buy. I took my American Express card out of my wallet. I handed it to the gentleman, and I said, we're going to pay for it cash today. And my son looked at me. He said, Dad, that's what we're doing? I said, yes, that's what we're doing. It wasn't about the car, and it wasn't about paying cash for it. Here's what it was about. It was showing my young son, this is how that happens. And it happens because of the sacrifices that I made along the way. It wasn't about the car, it was about the sacrifices. And I wanted him to see that if he makes those same kind of sacrifices, 20 years from now, he can do the exact same thing. It's nothing special about Michael. It's about the learnings and the opportunities and the application. And it starts for this crowd if you're not there this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Congresswoman Beatty, for having me. It's amazing to hear what my fellow panel members have said, and I'm going to actually kind of speak off of what Carlos shared about grow it, protect it, leave it behind. And the topic that I'm going to talk about really hits close to home, and I'll tell you a story of why. But one of the things we have been doing at Nationwide is really focused on how we're going to help America prepare for and live in retirement. We have truly a retirement crisis in America today, and when you think about who we are in this room, I would ask for you to think about how many of you have someone in your family who is about to retire in 5 years, currently living in retirement, or a senior that at some point will need some long-term care. So let me share some stats with you from our survey. We know that 16% of employers today will only cover retirees. When we did a survey, we asked people who were about to retire within 5 years, how much do you think Medicare is going to pay for? They said 69%. Well, in reality, Medicare is going to pay for about 51%. So what that means, whatever Medicare isn't going to pay for, you pay out of pocket. And your out-of-pocket expenses will be your age, your family history, your health, the state you live in, and then the assets you have in retirement. So as our panelists have talked about education, it's our responsibility to help each other with this healthcare and retirement crisis. The other thing I'd like to tell you, what's really important about this, is that our healthcare systems are getting better. We are living longer. Our longevity, the average 65-year-old couple today, they're targeted to live into their early 90s. The average retirement age today is 67. So when you think about people taking Social Security starting at 62, if you're retiring at that age, you're going to live another 25 years. Do you have the assets and the income to live off of? And oh, by the way, if you get sick, Medicare is not going to pay for everything. And I'll tell you how this is real. Medicare does also not pay for long-term care. So this takes me to my grandmother. So I was blessed to have my grandparents both live in their late 80s. They both worked for the state of New Jersey for many years, and they were grandfathered under these really rich benefits from the state. So Medicare was there for them. They owned their home. They lived below their means. But my grandfather retired at 55. He didn't know he was going to live and be blessed to live a very healthy life until he was 89. So after he passed, we had to figure out what we're going to do with my grandmother. Luckily they had a will, but if you think about it, she started to have dementia, and in her later years, she needed 24-hour care, meaning we need somebody in there giving her meds. And I'll tell you, when you have something like this, and if you're close to any elderly person in your life who either raised you, was really important to you, my grandmother was everything. And so to see her hit this point in her life, we wanted her in the best facility possible. And if you do not plan for that, you're going to see the people you care about most in places that you may not want to consider. So what did we have to do? So then it was on my mother, who actually lived in Florida, so was flying to New Jersey to meet with these facilities. And that's when we're going to have that conversation about what do you have. They want every asset you have. The only way you qualify for Medicaid is if you have less than $2,000, period, savings, checking. Yeah, so they're going to come after everything. We were blessed that she had, her home, Social Security, and her pension, but it was not enough. And we will tell you today, 7 out of 10 65-year-olds will need long-term care. For a private room in a long-term care facility, it's $91,000 a year. And for a shared room, so semi-private, it's $81,000 a year. So think about that. Did my grandmother have $200,000 sitting around so that she could be in the best facility ever for her? No. But what did we do as her family? So that we could sleep at night and she got the best care possible, we supplemented that. And it was several thousands of dollars a year. And that is real. And so as I make these comments, think about people today. This is something we will all have to deal with, by the way. Not one person in this room, if you're blessed to live into your 90s, we're going to have to deal with living longer, and we're going to have to deal with market volatility, inflation risks, and then how do we pay for it? So I'd leave you with some key learnings for us. My mom, actually I was on the phone with her today as I was coming over here, and she said, you know what, I pay $400 a month, you and your father and I. My dad just retired at 74 years old. By the way, that's a reality. As it gets expensive, we know from our survey, and specifically women, most women do not think they will ever be able to retire. Most women are the ones that will benefit from long-term care. And oh, by the way, you're going to have to make it up somehow. So most of us aren't reading, Medicare.gov and reading all the rules. So I'm here to tell you it's a conversation we need to have. Right. It's a conversation we need to have with all of those that are important to us, that are entering retirement, living in retirement, and who really want to be comfortable in their later years. We have provided with you in your packets today in the bags a healthcare cost assessment tool at Nationwide. If you're working with a financial advisor, that's the other thing you heard today, get help. When you go see a doctor, they diagnose you, right, so they can prescribe something. When it comes to your financial matters and when it comes to living in retirement, saving for college, whatever is important to you, it's no different. If you're working with an advisor, they can run an assessment for someone that qualifies for this in retirement and tell you how much it's going to cost. We can tell you how much it's going to cost. But if you don't do that, you can go to nationwidefinancial.com/healthcare, and all that information is there. So please take the opportunity to read, educate yourselves, so that if your grandmother, your great aunt, your mother, your father, whoever is important to you, when this happens, you're prepared. Thank you.
Thank you.
Money without context creates wealth without purpose, which creates a disparity both internally and externally. The solution is to build a personal financial legacy that is based on God-sized goals, yeah, I said it, and has God-directed purposes. Well, that's my story. Let me back up. So the first thing is this idea of money. The moment we talk about money, it's personal. It's personal, so personal that most people would rather talk about anything else but money. I think that's been witnessed to already. And the reality is that money, out of context, is really dangerous. It's dangerous because you get the wrong message for the wrong reasons, doing the wrong thing. It's like a fire. Fire is really good. If you got a fireplace, it works so well to have your fire in the fireplace. Okay? But I'm going to tell you something about that fire. Get it out of the fireplace and see what happens. Right. You see what I'm saying? The context for that fire needs to be the fireplace. Really, for me, the funny thing about money and how it's communicated and how it's not, really the best way for me to think about it is a story that involves a guy that's really dealing with his family about a question that he had to deal with. Because money is kind of like sex. Oh, there I said it. You really, it's difficult to deal with. And actually, it's actually easier to talk about sex than money. So here it comes. So he's in the driveway. He's sitting in the driveway. He's getting ready for a wedding. Sister girl is in the house. Hair is kind of, got issues, but she's got it together. So then she's coming, but before she can come out, husband gets upset, sends his 5-year-old daughter in to get mom. Find out what's taking her so long. 5-year-old daughter comes back out, gets in the car, and says, Dad, what's sex? Holy cow. So he's thinking to himself, 30 years I've been preparing for this. I don't want her getting it off the street. I don't want her getting it off the TV. I don't want her getting it from front. I'm ready for this. And so he launches. Goes for about 2 minutes, finishes up, looks at her and says, honey, did that explain it? She goes, well, Dad, Mom said she'll be down in a couple of secs. Is that what sex is? So you see what's going on here? We got people that are really concerned. They get something out of context, and what happens? Everybody's embarrassed. Everybody's looking around. And that's what happens to money all the time. And what happens when you get money out of context, somebody starts selling you something. And somebody starts telling you something in a way that you don't need because you've never really done the first thing you need to do, which is get that purpose. So you say, okay, Ray, let's say that that's true. Now you got me on the context thing. Talk to me. So who are you? What do you do? So I work for the Northern Trust Company. Now, the thing you need to know about us is that we have in trust about $750 billion of other people's money. In trust. $750 billion. So we're actually experts on telling what happens on the other side of your money. Okay? We actually work with beneficiaries all the time, so we know what happens. And here's the thing I've got to tell you. The funny thing is I work with clients I've seen about, maybe over my lifetime working, I've probably seen about $3 or $4 billion of other people's money transferred. So I've got to kind of watch this front seat kind of a thing, watching this happen. And what I've observed with those folks, and the folks that have a lot of money, $100 million, let's say, and my household and the relatives I have and the neighborhoods I live in, the interesting thing is the conversations are kind of the same. Interestingly, both groups make the same mistakes. Both groups, poverty, wealth, same thing. Here's the mistake. They've got 3 things mixed up. They've got wealth, let's go the other way. They got work, worth, and wealth mixed up. One more time. Work, wealth, and work. They got it mixed up. The reality is, because worth, let me start again. Work, really, everybody starts talking, immediately we connect work with compensation. I'm going to talk about that in a second. Secondly, we connect worth. Our worth gets connected with the compensation, which is why nobody wants to tell you what their net worth is. Okay, because if you know my net worth, then you know who I am. Not so much. And then, of course, on the backside, then there's this wealth thing. All right? So let's go with work right quick. So last time I checked, I read through Genesis 1. Amazing. all of a sudden the first thing we really find out about God is he worked. My gosh, he worked. And by the way, some people say, well, you know what, the way to work is we want to get intellectual. We don't really want to work with physical labor. That's the meaning. You want to be something. Actually, I'm glad God wasn't just an intellectual God, right? Because if he had just intellectually created, I'd be talking to you by thought now. The reality is, I'm glad to be here physically. It was physical labor. So what's the point? The point is that really when you look at it, work is actually what makes us kind of really in the reflection of God's image. I really believe that. And the truth of it is, we do work. Work is an amazing thing. Think about it. It's one of the few things that you can not actually do too much of. You think, Ray, is that true? Yeah. God actually had to say, look, you need to take a break for a day. Because work, when it's done passionately, as people have witnessed to, actually is something that really gets you going. Now, here's the problem. The problem is that when you look at work, a lot of times people are saying, well, look, the reality is I want to connect it with compensation. So what happens is they make a decision that is not related to their ability to do what work was primarily designed to do. And we are sitting here a beneficiary of that kind of work. Work is primarily designed to provide things to the community. When you work, the way you know that it's been valuable is the reflection back of people who have been benefited by your work. That's how you know it. That's what makes most people who work really excited about their work. But so what happened on the way to my job, somebody slipped me a little thing that said, no, that ain't really important. What's really important is that comp, dude. Well, I get that, but let's get first things first. Really what's important about work is that you have the ability to do something that benefits others. So here's what's happened in our culture. Our culture has a cough. The cough is called, we're going to work and get the most money. He who gets the most salary wins. Problem is the cough for them that's taken them completely off track is become tuberculosis in the black community. And so what's happened is we're focusing in on this kind of individualistic pattern that says me, my. And is it any wonder why they're predators all over the place? It's because the focus on work as principally a personal consumption matter just doesn't sustain. And I wouldn't even have to have this conversation if we lived in a different kind of culture, a socialism or a communalism, communism in its non-totalitarian sense. In those cultures, you have to tell people how to be an individual. In our culture, you know what's missing? We have to tell people how to be part of a community again. This is the truth. So now, okay, Ray, you're done with work. So now, what's the next thing? Work. So it's funny, you go to these graduations, Brother Dyson, you go to those graduations and people stand up there and go, we want to drop the guns. We want to get our kids in school. We want them to become doctors and lawyers. Jesus, don't become doctors and lawyers, please. We got enough of those in Chicago, where I'm coming from. We don't need more doctors and lawyers. You know what my speech to them would be? I would say, look, become the best thing that you were created to be. And for goodness sake, do enough work and diligence and discipline and hustle so you figure out what that is. You won't figure it out sitting there. By the way, this is what's interesting about work. Do you realize that two families are having the identical conversations? Maybe you haven't been in families with $1 billion, but I've actually been in their living rooms. And so here's how it goes. Well, I hope this money won't affect Jimmy and Susie. I hope they'll keep working. I hope they'll be productive members of society. You listening to me? I hope they'll be productive members of society. I actually draft that into trust. That only give to Jimmy if he's going to be productive. You know what they're saying? They're saying what I just said. That the real goal of being a fulfilled human being is to be such that other people regard what you're doing as absolutely imperative to their welfare. But the reality is they're sitting there with all that money and they're afraid what? They're afraid little Jimmy will stop working. Okay, let's go over to the other side. Now they're in a sitting and said, hey, you got the gunfire, put the guns in. Okay, well, we haven't got a job. Sitting around, there's no opportunities, nothing going on. Think we can get them to work? Think you can get a job? Think Jimmy and Susie can get a job? They need to get a job so they have some purpose, so they have some direction, so they know what things are about. They need a job. Interesting? Both sides are worried about their circumstances taking away the idea of working. Are you getting me? Working is something that just joy. By the way, well, I'll get to that later, but I'm going to tell you something about the dream. So now we're on to worth. The problem with worth is when it gets connected with this reality that I got net worth. That's a problem. And so what we've done is, and this is a big deal, because I kind of fell into this trap and I did the same thing. So by the way, I didn't want to get into personal stuff, but I was laid out there. So I have not one, not three, not five. I have shared 7 children with a wife of 34 years. So the reality is, now all those kids are the last ones in college. Here's the truth of it. I was quite excited when I had kids that didn't want to go to college. They are among my most successful ones. They're my most successful. I have a daughter right now. You can go down to Bloomington Normal. There's a building with her name on the outside of the building. She ain't got no degree. She was making $25,000 while some of the other people were getting into debt $25,000. No problem. Another son that's into fitness. I'm telling you, he's going to be. The bottom line of it is what I tried to do is tell them, look, get motivated and connected with what God's doing in your life, and then figure it out, and then we'll help you. And by the way, yes, you better get some scholarships. And my daughter got a full scholarship to the Ohio State University. Thank you, Congressman. You know, the reality is that the reality of this thing is there are other ways to get at this thing, but the key I right away said, look, you know, I went to law school, but my worth is not tied up with being a lawyer. And if it is, shame on me. Because I'll tell you right now, I'm going to see some people walking when I go across the street that are doing the street crossing. I am thankful for their jobs. I am thankful for the passion they have for their jobs. And please help them to have direction and purpose in doing that. All right, now, get that worth out. Now we're on to wealth. Okay, quickly. Now we're on to wealth. So wealth, here's the thing I figured out. So with wealth, if you go to the end of the story, sometimes you can find out what the beginning is. The end of the story is, I'm going to tell you something. All personal wealth is transferred. Think about it. Go ahead, think about it. I could have said it another way. You're going to die without your money. That's right. Okay, I could have said it that way. But the reality is because when I say it the right way, it comes out this way. Look, all personal wealth is transferred. Number 2, you're sitting there transferring personal wealth right now. If you got a parking thing, your wealth is being transferred right now. You've got a debt that's coming. You know, we're all transferring wealth. That's not a big deal. The big deal is, do you have some purpose behind those transfers? Okay, what I figured out is there's 3 ways wealth transfers. Number 1, it transfers by consumption. Someone has talked about consumption and did a fabulous job, much better than me, in talking about maybe you have to let Louis go. The reality is consumption is about having your lifestyle for your lifetime. By the way, do you see how this ties in to the whole concept of self? If I go to work to get compensation so I can be consumptive, so then I can be conspicuous in my consumption, then my worth is identified by what I have, and I'm all good while you're going, yeah, you got it. It just doesn't work. And we're just doing this, and we follow people who did it in their culture, and we're thinking that's the recipe for, no, why would we do that? That recipe isn't working. Look at Wall Street. I can give you so many names you don't even want to hear them. But the reality is that's consumption. Now the second C is confiscation, and it's already been mentioned. If you don't get it right, they will take your money. Now rich white folks worry about their money being taken by what? Yes, taxes. They worry about taxes, and that's the big thing. Well, the problem is the government is the problem for people who have so much money that you're on the radar. For poor people, they take your money too. It's just financial predators, many of them creating very wealthy firms from being a predator to the poor people. Knowledge is confiscated. If you don't know, and you would say to yourself, if I knew, I wouldn't have given that money, that's confiscation. They took your money because you didn't know what it was that you needed to purchase. So that's confiscated. We want to minimize that. But here's the third one, and this is the C I really want to dwell on and then get out of here, Brother Dyson, and this is this. The third C is contribution. One more time, contribution. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, now, brother going to try to pass a plate or something. Like, no, contribution, the reality of what I'm talking about here, contribution is, think about it. Anytime I am voluntarily transferring wealth to somebody else, and we had good evidence, you're talking about volunteering wealth to kids, and you know, we all feel that. You know what you're expecting. When you contribute wealth to a kid to go to school, what do you expect? Go to school. We always have a end goal of when we give money. Here's my sentence. In the trust business, the Northern Trust Company, when you set up a trust, the thing that you will define is a word called beneficiaries. Beneficiaries. Think about the root word of beneficiaries. What's the root word? Benefit. So what you ought to be asking yourself is, what benefit am I trying to give my children? What benefit am I trying to give this? What benefit? And that benefit should be what drives what you're doing. Making sense? Your benefit should be, and so the problem is that what happens is if we get our stuff all messed up and we get our purposes all crossed, then we don't really know what we're doing, and we start giving away money. You'd be like those folks in that $1 billion living room worried about whether Johnny's going to go to work tomorrow. So how do you get a good idea of what it is that you want to contribute to. Now, here's where it comes in. See, the bottom line of it is, my wife was just recently sick. Oh, she was so sick. And she was in the hospital bed. And you know what happened? You know what I watched? I watched her goals get reduced to bed size. When you've got, a tube down your throat and you can't move, you know what your goal is? Get out of bed. It's bed size. And when you're in a neighborhood where, you go around the neighborhood and within a square blocks, you can hear gunfire, your goals are neighborhood size. Bed size, neighborhood size. Now, maybe you're somebody who's working, and you know what you get? You get job size goals, and someone did a better job than I'll ever do describing that. Yeah, it's about 2 o'clock. This job is about over. It's a job size goal. I want to do the job, get on till the weekend. Maybe you're like I used to be, and you say, well, I got a career size goal. Well, here's the problem with that. Somebody eloquently said this. A career size goal, hello, you're 65. Shoot, I just get into the age where I think I might know something. And they tell me I'm done? I tell you, this is a really insight. I didn't put this in, but you know what? There's a biblical story about Caleb. Caleb, you remember him? The dude was 85 years old. I said, what would you like to do, Caleb? We're getting ready to take this whole thing. You're 85, you probably want to retire now. He said, no, dude, give me that mountain. That's what he said, literally. Give me that mountain. I know these guys are taking the small stuff, they're taking the easy stuff, but actually, in my age, after all I've seen, after all I've done, I'm just starting. Here, let me show you what I'm saying isn't crazy. The reality of who you think of, who you admire, one of them's already been mentioned. When you think of people who really get it done, they have goals that last at least as long as their life. When Martin Luther King Jr. died, you know why we just absolutely adore the things he did? Because he was still doing it when he died. He didn't retire. If he'd have retired for 30 years, we wouldn't be talking about him the same way, I don't think, Brother Dyson, I don't. But the reality is, Lincoln, you got to assassinate. The reality is, you see, you got to get size goals. So my thing is at Northern Trust, the reason why I think we are helpful to people is we have life-driven wealth management. We believe in looking and asking you, what's his story and her story, the history and the her story. We get that, we try to get a purpose out of that, and we try to drive your investments and things by that purpose, by your life-driven. Having a life-size goal is good. Me, I've been thinking maybe life size won't be good enough because who knows? I'd actually like a goal, and here's where my legacy point comes, and I'm gonna sit down. My legacy is this. What if I could have a goal that doesn't change the world, but changes eternity? What if I could have a goal that when people come back, that I just, in my mind, I'm thinking, the ripple effect of what I just done with this one person this one time, it's actually might have an infinite effect. There's no limit to the effect of it. What if I actually thought like that? Well, I'll tell you what, I wouldn't be thinking the way some of my selfish past life thinking has been. I'd be thinking with a goal direction that would all of a sudden give money a context so that wealth has a purpose, so that there'd be less disparity, and so I could build a legacy. God-sized goals, God-driven purpose. I'm done.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Boy, that was a great panel, I must say. But I'm privileged to be and honored to be on this panel, and I'd like to thank the Congresswoman for her leadership around looking at these issues and how you solve this disparity problem among our people. I just have a few questions and then a few comments, and then I have a video that I want to show you. And this is audience participation. How many of you are registered to vote? Raise your hand. Okay. Keep your hands up. Okay. How many of you voted in your last primary? If you didn't, then lower your hands. The last primary. Okay. And how many of you were well versed in the issues that came up and were aware of where your candidate stood on the issues when you went in that voting poll? So really good. Okay. So you're really focused on that. So I have another set of questions, and you just think about them in your head. You don't have to raise your hand. How many of you work for a company that offers a retirement plan, like a 401k, a 403b, 457? Okay, you don't have to raise your hands. How many of you participate in that plan at the maximum level? Just think about it in your head. So if you don't participate at the maximum level, how many of you participate so you get the match, which is basically free money? And then the final question, and it goes to a point that Michelle made and others around education, how many of you are educated around the provisions in your plan, and particularly the investment options. So that's really key as you think about building wealth, because the easiest way, one of the easiest and quickest way to start saving is through a 401k plan. Most people are in plans offered by their companies which have an opt-out provision. And what we found is most people don't opt out, some of them do, but if you are opting out, I would suggest rethink that. I would not opt out. I would maybe opt down if you think you can't make the contributions at a particular level, or opt up. A lot of the plans have a 3% default rate. And most people think because the government has approved that's adequate and I can save at 3%. Saving 3% a year is not going to get you to your retirement. So I would suggest doubling that, going from 3 to 6, and potentially saving from 10 to 15%. Because it's a long road to retirement. Once you get into retirement, you may be there a long time. We were talking about longevity. My stepfather is 105. He'll be 106 in December. His first cousin is 108. I think my stepfather is still 105 because my mom is 75. And he's trying to keep up with her. But in terms of their medical expenses, the average that they will be paying is about $220,000. So think about if you're participating in that 401k, and if you got sick, that would wipe you out. So what are you going to live on? So we actually need to think about that as we build wealth. And then one other point about education, particularly about your kids. And I'll tell you a story about mine. Carla knows my kids. I have a son, 15, and a daughter, 12. 3 years ago, when my son was 12 and my daughter was 9, I wanted to teach them about the stock market. So I set up an account with them through my company, Fidelity. Of course, I was overseeing it. It wasn't really theirs, but they were thinking it was theirs. And I wanted to give them some idea about how to invest. So I sat down with my son and I said, you know, let's think about the companies that you like and let's invest. So, you know, he has his iPad and his iPhone and all of these things. And so he picked Apple 3 years ago. It was $2.69 a share. My daughter, 9 years old, what else is she gonna pick but McDonald's? That's what she likes to do. She picked that and it was, I think, around $84 a share. Before Apple split, my son, looking at his account, it was over $600 a share. My daughter went from $84 a share in McDonald's to almost 90. Now, what's interesting doing this process, my son, when the account got up from $269 to $300 a share, he goes, Mom, let's sell, let's sell, let's sell. And I'm like, no, that's not the point. I want you to learn what drives the market up and down. And so my husband said, I thought you wanted to make money. I said, I want him to learn how one makes money. So soon after that, it was announced that Steve Jobs had cancer, and the stock dropped some. And my son was like, see, Mommy, I told you I should have sold, I should have sold, I should have sold. I said, no, just wait. And a few months later, what? It went right back up. So education is key. The other thing in terms of going back to the 401k plans and saving generally, particularly for young people in the audience, it's about saving early, it's about saving more, and it's about saving wisely. Going back to the voting, if you vote, and most of you do, and you make the wrong decision on the candidate, you can refresh that and recorrect it, and the next time, next 2 years or 4 years, you can go back in the polls and you can vote again. If you're Chicago, you can vote several times. And you can change the situation. You can change your outcome. But if you're saving for retirement and you've waited too long, it's hard to catch up. And in fact, it's almost impossible to catch up. But retirement savings and savings generally can be easy. Like I said, you just have to put your mind to it and do it. So how I'd like to end, I have a video of a Fidelity customer who had, it's all about your lifetime goals. It may not be retirement. I don't know what retirement means anymore. I'm going to work till I'm 70, 75. It's getting to your financial goals, whatever that may be. and you can do it early by saving. So let me show you this video and we'll wrap up here. You're gonna... This is our friend Marion Barnett.
My name is Marion Louise Teresa Stanger Barnett. I was born July 17, 1921, the ninth of 11 children. Every Sunday, my mother would clean out every drawer to find 5 cents. I never had a nickel other than that. The only time I thought I was poor was one time I unwrapped my sandwich out of my yesterday's paper, and the kids around me said, "Marion eats lard." Then when I got out of high school and business college, I joined the service on January 13, 1943. A couple of months later, I married the man of my dreams, Fred Barnett, in San Francisco in Chinatown. When Freddie and I got married, we decided never to live beyond our income, his income. Mine I put in the bank. When we went to buy a car one time, Freddie said, "Let's go." I said, "I don't want a new car." I said, "I don't want to spend the money." He said, "Let's go." So we went down to see Jimmy at this car place, and we looked at it, and he liked it, and I liked it. And he said, "Okay, Jim, we'll take it." Jimmy said, "Well, how are you going to pay for it?" And I said, "Give me the bottom line." And he did, and I reached in my pocketbook and got out my checkbook and wrote him a check. Freddie said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm paying for the car." He said, "I didn't know we had that much money in the bank." And I said, "Well, if you had asked me, I'd told you." But you have to learn how to take care of your money. Just now, I've got my jardineer by the door. I bet I've got $500 and change in that. My mother would have been proud of me. I've saved for 2 years to sky jump. Jumping out of the airplane was something I wanted to do. And Freddie wouldn't go with me. I said, "Come on, Freddie, let's go do it." He said, "I don't want to." And I said, "Coward." And my kids wouldn't do it. My daughter said she did it in Cleveland, but I have a big doubt about that. And then when Tiffany called, says, "Grandma, I'm gonna be 30 next year. Would you jump out of an airplane with me?" And I said, "Sure, let's go now." When I signed in, they all marveled. "How old are you?" I said, 90. "Oh my gosh, I wouldn't do it for the world." I said, "I might be stupid, but I can fall out of an airplane." And the most apprehension I had was sitting on the plane, waiting to get altitude. But once we got there and he said, "We're gonna go out at 3, I said, "You better push." He did. 3 and off we went. It isn't scary, just floating through the clouds. Oh, we're in the clouds doing it. And he talked all the way through it. "Now look down, you'll see the church. And look down, you'll see where you live. And look down, blah, blah, blah." It's an experience. It really is. You can just sit and do nothing. But I don't. If I sit and do nothing, I'm bored. I'd rather save my money and jump out of an airplane again. That's more fun.
So what are you gonna do? Are you gonna sit and do nothing? Or you're gonna take action and start saving so you can skydive at 90? Thank you.
Wow. That's so rich. Let's give this panel a round of applause. You know, I don't even think we can talk among ourselves. We're just going to open it up for questions. Let me just very brief. Okay. Have them come to the mic. I was going to summarize, but we ain't even got time, so I'm going to just, y'all heard what they said. I mean, my children are safe. I feel that their financial future is in great hands. But there were some outstanding comments made here today. You know what they said. It's incredibly important, so let's open it up and have some dialogue and some conversation.
Wayne Goring, New York Life. There's one thing I didn't hear any of the moderators talk about was life insurance. I think life insurance is the cheapest, is most economical way to leave wealth to the next generation. But nobody talked about life insurance. I mean, that was just surprising to me.
Well,
Why is that?
let me take that for you, because Prudential, interesting that you should mention that, we actually sell life insurance and we offer retirement products. And when I talked a little bit about short-term planning and savings versus long-term planning and investment, what you will see in the study is that for our folks, that short-term savings planning usually it amounts to us investing in life insurance to protect our families and to protect our loved ones. That's all good. We actually buy more life insurance than most other groups of people, but what we're trying to say to you is, okay, that's good. Life insurance is absolutely something you want to have to protect and to care for your family and your loved ones, but to long-term plan, to wealth build, and to build a legacy, we have to also focus on wealth building and retirement planning.
Hi, I'm Tav Gaddy from Detroit. My question is, I have an idea of creating generational wealth, utilizing a commodity that's one of our natural resources that's more important than anything, one of 3 non-optional elements necessary to our health and our very survival. So my question is, how can I introduce this particular commodity that will impel individuals to want to be a part of something that's so important to our lives that they can invest and create generational wealth and utilizing a commodity that can enhance our lives forever? Who would I talk to and how could I put that out there?
Thank you, sir. Anybody want to take that?
Well, you know, since you make generational, one of the things I think that's really a difficult proposition, and I think I kind of hit on it a little bit, is when it comes to creating multi-generational wealth, I think the key is that the person who's creating it has to have a goal and a purpose. And then what you have to do is you have to see how that lines up with the people who are the beneficiaries. And that's actually why I think it's the right conversation. Because when you have the conversation, you can kind of find out, well, you know, I really didn't want that. I didn't need it, or I don't want to do it. And one of the problems I've seen that kind of hits to what you're saying, it's when the family wants the kids in the company business. And the problem is, there's 6 kids, and none of them want to be in the business. And so, to your question of, is this commodity valuable? Should people be doing it? I'm going to assume that everything you said is 100% correct. That true? I can't say for certain. My personal experience has been that that doesn't necessarily mean that I'll be able to transmit that to the people who are my children or others in the next generation. Because their purpose kind of thing, who they are, may dictate everything, which is why wealth is a separate deal from work. Wealth has its own rules, and this panel has done a good job of talking about that. And so the rule for managing wealth is get a good commodity and hold on to it. The idea of work in terms of whether they can actually participate, that's a separate question.
All right.
Hello, my name is Chastity Murphy. I'm a student at South Carolina State University. I first want to thank Congresswoman Joyce Beatty for having this panel and assembling such great panelists to talk about this topic, because financial literacy in the Black community, especially in my generation's community, is such a big topic. I heard Miss Green, I'm gonna get your name right, talk about education a little bit. But one thing I realized, especially being in college, and it's such a hard topic to talk about wealth. So what do you all think, or how do you all feel that we can implement financial literacy in higher education institutions, high school? Because we don't talk about it, we don't know about it, our parents don't talk about it. It's like a generational cycle. We don't know, so we don't do. So I hear you all talking about it, and I hear you all trying to address the issue, but there's not enough for me in here. So that's where I want to ask the question about. All right.
Go ahead, I'll
Well,
follow.
yeah, I would say that, I mean, first of all, we're in the right place. I mean, this is exactly why Congresswoman Beatty had the foresight to plan a panel discussion like this, because we are trying to raise awareness. And I know, and I probably speak for my peer companies on this panel, that our companies do a lot of work to try to raise awareness in financial literacy for our youth. In fact, both when I was at Merrill Lynch and currently at Prudential, we actually do what we call at Pru Learn, Do, Earn programs, where we bring in high school students and middle school students to teach them about financial planning, budgeting, et cetera. So when they go off to college, they're ready and prepared. So I would encourage you, to reach out in your local communities to figure out what's going on. Reach out to any of us, and we can connect you with some of those programs. And also, it starts at home. I mean, I think we talked about it. One of my panelists spoke about it earlier. We watch and we learn by example. My kids, I have no credit card debt. And the reason I have no credit card debt is because 20 years ago, I found myself in a really bad place with credit cards. And like somebody on this panel mentioned, pay it down. I think Carla said it, pay it down, pay it down, pay it down. Once I paid down those cards, I refuse to have another credit card. So when I go out with my kids and they see me take out cash, when I just bought my car and took out cash, my boys were like, what? I'm like, this is the way it goes down. Right? So it starts at home. We have to raise awareness in our own homes, and we have tons of resources to help you.
And let me just say, I think there's an easy solution that we can implement at the elementary school level, let alone the junior high and the high school and the college level. When we're teaching basic math, we can do that all around financial literacy. Because as I said earlier, it's just addition and subtraction. So if I'm going to teach you how to subtract, I can do that in the context of a checkbook. I give you $100, now you just spent $10 on that. Subtraction, that means you have 90 left, right? And that's what we need to do. And we need to start thinking about financial literacy in the basic academic curriculum when you are in school. Because it's one thing to say, let your parents do it, but if your parents don't know, they can't help you, right? And unfortunately, many of our parents don't know how to manage money, don't respect money, and nobody ever taught them. So they can't teach their kids. So we bring it into basic math. And then when you get to middle school and you're learning about fractions and percentages, well, you got a 25% yield on that stock because it went up from X to Y. What is yield? Well, what did it go, how much it went up is in the numerator. The denominator is where did you start? That's how much it went up. So you can teach these concepts in the basic part of math, and I think that's what we need to do. And in college, I think it should be mandatory that there's some basic financial class, just like there's a basic writing class, there's usually a basic science or math. There needs to be, again, the integration of financial concepts right in freshman year so that you don't make the credit mistakes that I talked about when you're also given that credit card at registration.
One thing I'd want to say too, I echo exactly what Carla said, and I think since we're here at an annual legislative conference, we should think about talking to our policymakers about instituting incentives so that the State Department of Education would do what Carla has said and implement these classes as a part of that core curriculum in schools. And then the other thing, think about gamification, because how our kids learn today and what they're interested in is all about the gaming, right? And so if you could make it fun, I think math is critical, but make it fun so those kids can get engaged and learn, because they can have fun and learn at the same time. When I was in high school, I took a vocational education course, and I had a teacher who taught me about budgeting and check writing. And as a result of that, I went to college because I wanted to be an accountant because I did it in class and it was fun. And that started my financial career. It started in high school. So I think we need to talk to your congressman, talk to your representatives, talk to the people in your state education boards, and push this issue around implementing that financial education to the core curriculum.
Yeah, it's not that hard. Right.
I want to add to you, just to say this, that the power of one, you should start a movement. If you're concerned about it, the people around you are concerned about it. And because they don't know you're talking about it, they're not talking about it either. But we have to understand that if we keep the conversation alive, and if you use your social media and all the other things, there's so many people that want to push the agenda, but we don't say it loud enough, and it takes courage.
Internship program. We actually started a movement, and CBCF just approved of it yesterday, to launch a social media campaign regarding student debt and education affordability. So if you all want to work with this one, it would be great.
All right, we'll do that. Look, these are going to have to be the last two questions. They got to be extremely brief, very, very brief, and then we'll have very brief comments. I'm sorry about that. If you want to talk to them afterward, that'll be great, but we got to keep on schedule here.
No problem.
All right?
First, I would like to thank all of you for being here today. Just like my colleague Chastity, I'm a CBCF intern, and I'm a recent graduate from Michigan State University. Thank you. One of my concerns as a graduate is that I do have a lot of college debt because I take out a lot of loans to get through school, and I'm happy I was able to get through school and get that opportunity. But I'm somewhat worried as if, as to where my future will be in terms of being able to pay back these loans, but I still want to be able to invest my money and create something so that I'm not working for the rest of my life just to eat, like a lot of people I know. So I was wondering, do you all have any tips or anything that you think I should work on and start thinking about now so that I'm set in the future and in a good position?
First thing I want to say to you, with your friends, is that many of us had to pay a lot of money to go to school. And I talk to kids all the time who are afraid to get the further education because of the debt they may have to handle. So I first want to tell you, congratulations, because no matter how much debt you have to take on, the education is well worth it. It's just worth it, number one. Number two, you are going to have to get your hustle on. You have to do everything you got to do, plus some extra. And when you're doing that extra, you got to save first and then pay down your debt. You got to do both at the same time. You can't do one or the other. But the first thing I want to say is your education and your further education that's going to cost you more is worth it.
And I would just say plan. Plan very thoughtfully and carefully. I mean, many of us up here are still paying off debt from grad schools. All right, you have to plan. So when you get that first job and you figure out what your income is and you look at your overhead, plan how you're going to pay it down. Like Carla talked about earlier, paying down debt, you have to come up with a plan. We talked about you talked about planning earlier as a goal. Plan, 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 and don't waste your money.
All right.
Say be thoughtful about the jobs you take, okay?
Okay.
Young man, pay attention. Make sure you ask for the money when you're going in the door.
Get that money. Get that money. All right. Yes, sir.
And think about what you're spending your money on now, right? Because you can do both. You can save and you can pay down those debts. So maybe you won't do that movie.
That's right.
Right? Maybe you'll take your lunch one day. But there are things, go back and look at your monthly expenses and see what can I cut out and put that away to save.
But see all black movies the first weekend. Yes, sir. All right. All right, yeah.
Yeah, quickly, there is a massive movement across the country. I work with 32 different states on financial literacy. Look up Jumpstart Coalition for Financial Literacy. Most of your companies are already involved, and I hope you have people that are engaged. I know Congressman Green over here is a big proponent, and so is the Congresswoman here. And we are working with the Congressional Black Caucus in that area.
All right. So we've had an extraordinary panel. We've learned so much about hustling. It's like a Jay-Z seminar up in here today. And let me say this by way of ending. On a serious note, a lot of us, there's a generational gulf. The young person said, and the two young people who spoke said, look, ain't enough of us up in here. Let's not discourage the next generation. Now, I think T.D. Jakes is a rhetorical genius. I made a little smart aleck comment at the beginning, but let me just explain it very briefly. What I meant by that is that, you know, Bishop Jakes is now suing Young Jeezy and Kendrick Lamar because of unlicensed use of his voice at the beginning of their rap record. Well, them ain't the rappers you want to sue, especially Kendrick Lamar, who's a conscientious young man. He's got an album out called Good Kid, Mad City. Reinhold Niebuhr wrote a book theologically decades ago called Moral Man, Immoral Society. I'm saying Kendrick Lamar is like a Charles Dickens in the hood writing about the existential agonies that he confronts. So if we could find a way, I know you don't want no cussing associated with your name, but trust me when I tell you, as an ordained Baptist minister for 35 years, can't nobody cuss like a preacher. So what I'm saying to you, that's real talk. But what I'm saying to you, let's not create a gulf between us and the next generation, because let me tell you what, a lot of them done figured out some wealth management and creativity in illicit, ill-gotten ways, who have then flipped it into a legitimate enterprise. Jay-Z and Beyonce together, worth about $1 billion. B was always good in the church, but Jay-Z wasn't. So I'm saying to you, let's look at the ingenuity of our children in indigenous fashion in the hood, and let's not step on them, let's not be nasty to them, let's teach them and then learn from them so that we can create wealth together for the next generation. I bring to the podium now the great, the magnificent, the incredibly eloquent, the astonishingly beautiful, and the reputable Congresswoman Joyce Beatty from Ohio.
And now for my brother and my friend and the bad boy, in the name of Dr. Michael Eisen, let's give it up for him. Let me again say to you those two most powerful words that my mother taught me. Thank you. I thanked you in the beginning, and I thank you now for staying here. We had at one time 39 people in the hallway waiting to hear you all. It has been videotaped, so we're taking their names. But let me just say, you don't get to this position by yourself. And I had a lot of people that helped me along the way. And I also have some of my colleagues who were here, and I want to introduce one of them and have him make a brief comment. But let me say first to the panelists, because I know people are staying because they may want to ask you questions. Thank you for all your words of wisdom. Thank you for your stories. Thank you for the information. And as you could see, people were engaged because this is something we need for our folks who so often don't have the opportunities as some of our counterparts. To the younger folks in the audience, think about what they shared with you, because they've been able to do both. They've been able to get an education and to move up that ladder because they had courage, because they weren't afraid, but they also sacrificed. And that's the word I say to you. There'll be a lot of sacrificing to stand where we stand. With that, I have to say thank you to my sponsors. We would not be in this room without my sponsors. And would all of the sponsors please stand up? Come on. Ohio, Honda, the Ohio State University, Ohio Health was here. So we have Phi Beta Sigma was here, Mars, and the list goes on and on. So thank you for doing that. Now it is my honor. Earlier I shared with you that I am a freshman, even though I call myself an upper class freshman. I have the honor of serving on one of the top 4 most prestigious committees in Congress. And to be able to walk in the Financial Services Committee meeting and to walk in my subcommittee and be able to look at a member of the Congressional Black Caucus sitting there in that ranking seat and knowing that in probably 2016 he'll be sitting in that chairman's seat. Someone who came to my district, someone who reached out to me, went into the district and did a forum talking about financial services, talking about housing. He is my friend, he is my mentor, he is the Honorable Congressman Al Green from Texas' 9th Congressional District.
Good to see you, sir. It is always good to be in the company of the supercalifragilistic-espialidocious, the wordsmith par excellence, the Honorable Dr. Dyson. Somebody ought to give him a hand for just speaking words. I try to keep my dictionary handy so that I can understand what sometimes when Cleaver and I are together, I say, what did he say? Can you translate that for me? But it's a magnificent human being that God has given to us. And don't you just love seeing him on MSNBC getting people straight. They don't even know how they've been sliced and diced when he's finished with it. What a wonderful brother. If I may do this, I absolutely concur with his articulate recitation with reference to Congresswoman Beatty. She truly is comely, courtly, stately, vivacious, curvaceous. But doctor, she's brilliant.
Oh, absolutely.
Brilliant.
Number one.
What she has done in such a short period of time has not been equaled by anyone since I have been in the Congress of the United States of America. And somebody ought to show your love today. Somebody ought to say, I appreciate one who has gone to Congress and actually represented me. Somebody ought to say, amen. Thank you, dear brothers and sisters. And I will just leave you with this. I heard a good many of the words that were spoken. And I will tell you, you have benefited from pearls of wisdom that you should share with others. It's not enough for us to hear and see. We have to take it to the broader community. People that we will never meet and greet should benefit from what has been said here today. So I'm honored to be with my sister, my colleague on the Financial Services Committee, who is destined to be a chair herself. Just a matter of time, she will be a chair. And I'm honored to be with this august body and the Honorable Dr. Dyson. And thank you all for what you do. God bless you. Thank you.